Hi, Anthony.
How you doing?
One random question that I get several times a year from readers asking about could Channing Tindall play the edge, obviously with Jalen going down. Is there something about his skill set, knowing that he's behind four veteran inside linebackers, is there something about his skill set that you and Joe Barry have determined would not make him the ideal fit outside, even though there's a need there, even though he had pass rush success at Georgia?
Yeah, particularly with how we view the outside backer position, it's more just a physical attribute, matchup which why that wouldn't work. He's like 230 pounds, right? He's relying on speed. We need guys that can set the edge, that obviously has some coverage flexibility, but first and foremost, their primary job is to set the edge in the run game, and that'd be asking a lot of that kid.
You losing a guy like Jalen, reset the mind of so much stuff that's happening. What week are we in? Like it's been a lot. So how are you guys adjusting again to another?
Yeah.
Not necessarily, I wouldn't say setback because everyone's going to have to step up as usual. But how do you deal with that?
Yeah. Well, first off, just heart goes out to Jalen. Just know the work he's put in, the mindset he has, how important he is to our unit. Yeah, you hate to see anything like that happen to any player, particularly one of that magnitude. For us, as a defense, this is a National Football League. Last time I checked, I don't think I'm going to be getting any sympathy cards from anybody on the Patriots. So it's our job to one, collectively as a group, both coaches and players, step up our game to fill that void with him not out there. And I think we got the guys that can go out there and do that.
I wanted to ask you individually about the guys that, will be asked to step up: Quinn Bell, Mo, and Chop. I don't want to ask you to name a starter right now, but what exactly do you like from each one of them? What did they give you?
Yeah, they all have their special skills and attributes, right? They're each that are kind of unique to them. I think Quentin is very versatile in the fact that he can drop into coverage. You can rush him from multiple spots. He is a firm edge setter, right? I think he's still trying to refine and figure out who he is as a pass rusher, but he does a lot of things well. The two rookies, right? They're still trying to feel their way and trying to understand the league a little bit. Chop has obviously had more at bats at that, and you see his confidence growing with what we're asking him to do weekly. Are there ups and downs? Is it like the stock market a little bit? Sure, it's like that with every rookie. But what we need him, obviously, when you lose to Jalen Phillips, where he needs to be most impactful, which is his primary reason for drafting him, is to affect the passer. Right, and sometimes you don't necessarily see that in sack production, but he needs to be there, and that guy needs to feel him. And then Muhammad, I see Muhammad so you want him to be an enforcer, right? He's a guy that's rugged, tough. You talk about it, he should be a firm edge setter, be able to reduce him to a 3 technique and rush in there if need be. But he needs to be like your top flight security of the world. You know what I mean? He needs to be the protector and be the enforcer on the field. And I've kind of tasked him with that since he's been here.
We have a philosophy question regarding the play before the half. Tyler Boyd, 27. Yeah,
sick.
You guys are kind of in an umbrella coverage type. What's your thought on that specific play and your general philosophy? Is it better to rush the quarterback or sit back?
So situationally right there, obviously they had no timeouts. So you'd like to tackle them in bounds and ideally keep them out of field goal range. So what we did was we rushed 3 and we played a coverage with outside leverage where everybody was man outside leverage, and you had 2 safeties sitting in that kind of dagger window, which is where kind of most offenses try to attack you. Our mistake, and this comes from a coaching standpoint, instead of letting those guys play deep and then work up, we moved them up. And then what happens is offensively, they do some smart stuff, right? They dangle a little cheese in front of you, which makes you move up a little bit more, and then they hit the window behind you. So we got to do a better job, obviously, in those special situations of winning there, both from a coaching and player just mindset and going out there and executing. It's certainly a situation we've worked, just in that particular instance, we didn't execute at the level we needed to.
And not to throw anybody under the bus, did Poyer just make the wrong decision there?
To me, that is completely on us. We should have kept those safeties back deep and let them move forward as they saw it, and we decided to move them up, which I think hurt us.
You mentioned the importance of setting the edge. Where is Chop Robinson in that regard, and what are some of the teaching points you can provide him?
Yeah, I think Chop for the most part, has done a good job when he's been asked to set the edge. Where he can continue to improve is really just in his hand usage, getting extension, and then violently shedding blocks. And that's normal for young college players. A lot of these guys, and I think it's some of the teaching, he's 3 points of contact, right? They're loading up, they're getting their head in there. Well, in this league, when you get in your head in there and you're like this, these 340-pound linemen, they're going to grab you and they're going to throw you all over the place. And then they're not going to call holding, and that is what it is. So you got to play with extension so you can get them locked out, locate the ball, and then shed these offensive linemen. So I think if there was an area he needed to improve at in setting the edge, it's now, once you've got that point of contact, getting locked out, getting extension so you have time and distance now to find the ball and get rid of that offensive player.
How would you assess how Jalen Ramsey has played this year?
I think Jalen Ramsey's playing like Jalen Ramsey. There was a couple times where, there's some coverage breakdowns where he was, I don't want to say he was vulnerable, but he wasn't put in an advantageous situation where he was expecting help and it wasn't there, and that reflected negatively on him. I don't think those were his faults. But we've put him against their best guys the last 2 weeks, and when he was on them, he's been who we expect him to be. So I got to continue to find ways to move him. Try to do that a week ago. Thought he affected the game, right? Had some TFLs, like blitzing from the corner position, blitzing that nickel. And we're just going to keep trying to find ways to move him around so he can affect the game.
You guys are coming into similar records with the Patriots, and what is something you've seen from them, but also knowing like a win on Sunday can be the difference maker, especially in division games.
Yeah. You hear the head coach, and I think probably just culturally things are different within the building. But their play style is still very much like New England. They want to be big and physical and tough, right? They want to impose their will on you with the run game, and then take their shots on some of the guys they have on the edge. So we know what to expect, right? We know it's going to be a knockdown, drag-out fight, and we like to think we're built for that a little bit. We know we're going to have to stop the run. We know, like, from a numbers standpoint, yeah, you could say it's been our Achilles heel a little bit, but 141 last week, and they had 40 attempts, 3.6 yards per attempt. That leaves you pretty good at the end of the year. We'll take that. So while the numbers from a rushing total standpoint may not look good, when you're talking about yards per carry, I think we're trending in the right direction. So we'll just continue to prove in that particular area, and then see if we can affect this quarterback and we get him in predictable pass situations.
I was going to ask you about the run defense, and we've talked about the one big run before. I think you guys played more 8-man fronts than you played all year. Is that true? And was the 8-man front effective? I know you just talked about the total.
I think the last team we played, they got in a lot of XL groupings, which kind of forced you to play some bigger fronts. So if we have, it's more a product of what the offense has presented to us rather than what we wanted to do.
Was it effective?
Oh, yeah. I think when they were in their big groupings, we had success. The one long run they had, I think they were 11 personnel. It kind of squeaked through the B gap there, and the guy was on he was on his way. But shoot, you give me 40 cracks at it, I'm bound to break one too. Like, God bless him. Like, good job. If that means that you're a successful offensive coordinator where you run it 40 times, you have one like plus 10 gain, like, good job. Hats off. All right, we got to stop him every time, but
Sorry.
go ahead.
Other than his ability to catch the ball with his legs, what have you liked about Danny Crossman's work so far?
Oh man, how sweet was that, right? The thing I love about Og is just his approach to work. He's the same guy every day, and he's essentially what you hope Muhammad grows into, right? Right now for us, like, he is that. He is an enforcer, and you saw it multiple times in that game. He sets a firm edge, right? He can intimidate you with just his sheer size and will and his ability to, like, stick his face in the fan. And then as a rusher, right, he's not just a power guy. There's a little bit of finesse aspect and great hand usage to it too. So to me, he's a perfect guy for Muhammad to watch and kind of see what he can take from him and then add to his game.
Quick follow-up, you just mentioned Muhammad, you didn't mention Chop because of different skill
Yeah,
sets.
just different skill sets. That's all, yeah.
What are the reasons that the team is first in the NFL in third down defense?
Yeah, I think it always starts with the players, right? It always starts with them. I think we got a lot of guys that can do multiple jobs, and that enables us to be multiple from a coverage standpoint. I think when you look at us defensively, it'd be hard for an offense to pinpoint by down and distance, like, hey, this is who they are. When you allow offenses to do that, shoot, these guys are smart, right? They're gonna out scheme you, and they're gonna put you in situations you don't want to be in. I think when you just look at us, if you tried to break us down, it'd be hard to say we were one particular thing, which I think then makes offenses more vanilla, which allows you to attack that.
This team has had success over the years with undrafted corners with Needham and Kohu. Was there a moment the last few months where you and the other coaches or Mike and Chris said, I think we have something with Storm Duck, and how did he play on Monday, do you think?
Yeah, I don't know how fast we realized that. There were certainly some growing pains early, but man, I'm so proud of that kid and just the strides he's made since he's been here. The one thing that I think works best in his favor is that he is completely unflappable. Like, it doesn't matter if something bad happens to him. Like, next play, he is the same guy. You never see him overreacting to anything. He's just like, all right, that happened. I'm going to win the next play. And I think particularly at that position, that's a mindset you have to have. The other thing you love about him is shooting. I think he's physical out there for a corner. You saw it in the TFL he had where they tried to throw the ball to the flat, where he ran by the wide receiver and made the tackle. So when you have those two combinations with things like you have his athletic skill set, obviously, and you have a short memory at that position, that gives you a chance to be successful.
I was going to ask about Storm. That was my question.
Yeah.
He's this interesting mix to me of, you talk about the physicality and him going after it with the shoulder injury the other game. Yeah, he kind of jumps out to you on film as aggressive, but he also told me that he reads books, so he's kind of cerebral. Tell me about his personality. Like,
I mean, I don't know why guys, his name is Storm Duck. Right. All right. I mean, that shouldn't surprise you, right? I'm sure he's an interesting person. But no, I mean, he is a quiet kid. He's a quiet kid, but you can see he's very cerebral. He's taking it all in. And while that may not manifest itself like a Duke Riley, per se, you realize that he gets it and it's important to him. So I love the kid, man, and just look forward to just seeing the trajectory of his career moving forward.
What would you say would be a thorough explanation for why we've seen a drop in A-Shans per carry average from 7.8 to 3.1?
Well, last year, I mean, obviously his numbers were outstanding, and naturally there's, you could expect some to come back, but ultimately, like right now, I mean, there's a lot of areas that we need to improve on to get where we need to go. But, for us to, get back to our efficiently running the football and improving, I think it's areas that overall will work together as an offense, isn't just one thing or just him and his carries as it pertains to it.
Detail some of the intricacies in this offense that could help a new quarterback make a big leap from one game with the offense to second game orchestrating it.
I think the big thing is trying to we have carryover through stuff we do, so just making sure we have concepts that are overriding principles. And so ultimately what comes into is the timing as you get into it, because when you come from a place that's offensively different in the way that they throw the football, the more time you get on task with the guys and getting used to how the guys run routes. So when you have the consistency of concepts or consistency of how we do things, that naturally improves the more time you get on it.
Frank, a question about the 4th and 1 play to Tyreek and whether you question a call or the outcome of the play. It looked like Tyreek could have made it, but two guys missed blocks. And I'm wondering, do you say it was a good call, but the outcome was bad? Or do you say we're asking these guys to make blocks they aren't capable of making, so it wasn't a good call? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's kind of a collection of it where it's like, is that the optimum look to have that play called? And you say, no, it's not the optimum look. Could we had a chance to execute and get it? Yeah, but that's like all plays where the margin of error is so small sometimes that if it's not premium looks, okay, guys got to try and overcompensate for maybe not a premium look. But whether it's that play or other plays, is always just if everyone isn't just synced up together, that's where all of a sudden it's a good play. Where if everyone was connected and he was able to make a play in space, could have gone for, decent gain. But then if it's not and you don't get a premium look, it can be a negative play. So it's just the big thing is the margin of error is small. And when you're trying to get back on track, get healthy offensively, that's what you're trying to do, is trying to make sure you're mitigating the risk so you can put plays into as best looks as you can.
What's your assessment of Patrick Paul's first start?
Well, I think for him, there's a lot of stuff that obviously he's learned from, and operating and knowing that with the techniques and fundamentals that we're going to ask him to do, there's always a lot of growth. So there's some things that we thought that he's going to get some really good learning lesson from, growing from, good things he did blocking wise. It's just ultimately when you start off the season and it's not going too well overall for the offense, it's all of us together getting better. And I know he's going to approach it, and he's been really diligent with the guys and working hard. And I think overall, all of us will continue to grow from this point in the season.
It's been pretty well documented that you guys haven't had a ton of production beyond Tyreek and Waddle from the wide receiver position. How much can, if he's able to play this week, Odell change that dynamic?
I think with the way, obviously his career's gone and what he brings, he'll be another piece that we could really use. Obviously he's working through his process to return to play. So I'm sure when he is ready to go, we'll be able to use him in a way that will obviously use his skill sets, which is catch radius, ball skills, separation. I mean, everything he's had in his past, and he's a fun guy to be around. So whenever he's ready to go, we'll be excited to have him, and I think that he'll be a piece that we'll be able to utilize in the passing game.
What was going through your mind when the team had the 3 illegal shift penalties in a small sequence of plays like the game?
Just kind of like, okay, we've got to stop shooting ourselves in, the foot in those moments. And it's, it doesn't get any worse than that. So as we assess it and figure out how we're going to get better, that's a big area that we think that we can get better with, just limiting those instances of where all of a sudden we're moving backwards. And if we can get that solved, and that, that is our sole focus this week, is just making sure that we're executing what is necessary as opposed to ourselves. If we get that solved, we'll keep the ball moving where we need to go, and that's towards the end zone instead of towards theirs.
Was the walkthrough helpful? Was that a point of emphasis? Is there an advantage to doing a walkthrough as opposed to a regular practice for that stuff?
It's just, I think ultimately when you have a walkthrough versus a practice, it's the intentionality to which you go about things. So it's, when you study for an exam, are you better at the library or in your room? It's like where's your focus at? What are you putting your attention to when you're doing it? I think ultimately for us, everything we need to do is make sure intentionality is there, because everything matters, like as we're trying to just make sure that we're doing the right things, asking guys to do the right things at the right time, and make sure we're maximizing our opportunities.
Frank, where are you in terms of getting Janu more involved in the offense? In the preseason, we saw him doing a variety of things, and he talked about, hey, I'm in a place where they can really use all of my skills, and yet he only has 9 catches, doesn't have any rushing attempts. What has not happened so far, and what would you like to see happen for him to contribute more?
Yeah, I just think we have plays, obviously, to utilize the skill set. It's just making sure we give him the opportunities to get the attempts at the ball. So, I mean, the great thing about him is each week he's working to be ready to go and improve, and I think ultimately it's just on us collectively to just keep improving to make sure we get better and, utilizing our guys. So that's where the excitement for this week is, to make sure that we're ready to go with all of our guys and knowing that we're going to use all of our personnel to help us win this Sunday.
Have you been satisfied with the level of effort that you've seen? Some of these games have gone a little sideways, but them continue to fight through it. Is that something that's been a concern of yours?
No, it hasn't been a concern. The intent and the efforts there, it's just execution. So that's our sole focus this week, is collectively getting better, coaches and players, of our execution of what we're doing, our communication of it.
Getting back to the illegal shifts, who's specifically at fault for that? Is it like the quarterback in terms of the timing with not necessarily realizing that people are set? Is it the receivers? Who I guess would you, I don't want to say blame, but like who is, when it came to correcting it, who were you specifically focusing on?
I don't think unless it's just something egregious, it's, you say, hey, it's this one thing. It's, when you look at something like that, it's all of us. It's like, making sure that I'm lined up and I'm set. Okay, making sure that they are set. It's like, how can we help each other, as opposed to saying, well, he moved it before I was ready, or he wasn't set, or something like that. It's all of us really understanding. It's like, what gave us success last year is our ability to line up and move. And this year, it's just making sure that we understand, to get what we've had, we have to make sure that we're collectively understanding if we got to get set and move. And as you change quarterbacks, it's like knowing the pace at which we operate. So I don't think it's just to say it's one person. I think it's collectively. And ultimately, it starts with us as coaches, making sure that we're teaching, like, hey, there's one movement here to that. You got to make sure we're set. So I don't think it's one person you'd say to blame. I think it's ultimately our goal this week is collectively get better all together.
Is there a way to simplify the offense? I know with all the shifts and motions, and I know that very long play calls for the quarterbacks. Can this offense do simple?
Well, yeah, I think that for us, we're looking at making sure that we're asking our guys to do things that we can execute well, and then the things that we're struggling at, making sure that why are we struggling at it and how can we improve it, or do we just have to evolve? So I think when you're saying of simplifying things, it's not as much simplifying it as opposed to what are we doing well and how can we maximize it? What are we doing poorly and how do we eliminate it? And that's the goal, because we're at a point in the season where it's like, hey, if we can get these things solved and corrected, we got a lot of football ahead of us. And I think that's where everyone's intent's been. That's why yesterday was great, because the intentionality of everyone was there, and that's why, now we build on today.
Coach, how would you assess where Jalen Wright is in terms of his understanding of the offense 4 games in?
Yeah, I mean, you see his ability with the ball when he's running. He's obviously taken in all the different personnel packages where we can use him. So I know he's been meeting with Eric a bunch, so his intentionality to learning what he needs to do has been awesome. And it's just like everything, your hardest year in the NFL is your rookie year. So and he's been working hard to understand how he fits, where he complements, and really excited for the next, for this one especially, to see his growth from week to week.
Frank, admittedly, I don't know what I'm watching when I watch a lot of this film. It looked like there were times where Snoop could have delivered the ball to Tyreek or Jalen Waddle, that Tua would have delivered it right there, the timing, the spot, but it's hard for others to do that in their first game. Am I assessing that correctly, or is that right?
Yeah, it's not as simple as, but it's getting used to, when you have different receivers and you're getting in you full speed reps, it's you're learning through it, and you always want the learning and the growth to come through success. But sometimes, the greatest learning lessons come through, the failures or adversity. So that's right now is that we're learning a lot, and we have to take what we've learned and improve. So I think that's where we're at right now. It's not as, hey, he could have done this. It's more of, okay, now what have we learned to apply this week? And that's the challenge with going up to New England.
The quarterback position is a big factor in this, but are you surprised by the lack of big plays by this offense this year?
Well, obviously it's been discouraging, but at the same time, each game presents a new challenge, and you have to evolve to attack the defense for what they're giving you. So I think that obviously last year that was something we did very well, and people are trying to minimize those outs. But the big thing is, like, when we've had them, we just haven't been able to connect on all of them, and that's just the big thing, is just make sure we're improving when we get the opportunities, maximize them, and just make sure that we don't let something bad continue on. So I think for us, that's been the focus. It started yesterday and will continue in today.
Frank, with all the 7-man fronts you guys see, can you have 40 carries like Tennessee had against you? Is that a solution? Is that an answer?
Well, you get those opportunities a lot of times, like when you get into the end of the third to fourth quarter and you got the lead. That's where a lot of the rushing ops come from, where you can really build upon it. When you're playing from behind, you're having to balance, offense and what you're trying to do versus the ticking clock that's running down. So it's when you look at a lot of heavy rushing attempt games, you're saying that probably at the end of the third and the fourth you get the lead. So that's where you get a lot of those extra rushing opportunities. So for us to stay on schedule and get to where we need to go, that's where those situations come from. And if we can get back in those situations, that would probably help our rushing average.
I wanted to ask about the onside kick. I think all of us were a little bit confused at what happened and all that stuff. Can you break that down for us?
Which is part of why we did it. With the new rule, the concept of, there's a 25-yard landmark. Ball's got to be live. It's got to go 10 to be live, and then it's dead after another 15. So after having just kicked the onside kick, trying to use those new rules as a possible, see if we could get them to make some kind of misstep, and we hit the ball 2 yards too long. So if the ball's 2 yards shorter, now they're making decisions on who's catching it, who's not catching it. You see the two guys trying to communicate, and it's a live ball, and we got an opportunity to make a play. If they do fair catch it, we're not putting the defense in a bad spot with the ball on the 44, 45-yard line. However, like anytime you make a call, there's goods and they're bad. It doesn't work, and they get the ball at the 10-yard line. But for the situation after having just gone must onside to come back to try and play the new rule and some of the possible lack of communication or awareness, that's what we tried to play to, and it didn't work out.
How many options do you, I'm sorry, Bees, how many options do you have there, Danny? We've seen the drop kick, and you guys did the punt. Can you explain that?
There's lots of options, and with the new rule change, there's even more options because in past you weren't allowed to use a tee. Now the tee is an option, but once you declare an onside kick, and obviously you're doing that with the alignment of the kickoff personnel, then you bring in those new rules of the window of 10 yards, 15 yards, 25 yard. You could choose to not go onside. Now we're kicking the football, and now we're kicking it from the 20, but the coverage guys are still going to be up on the 40-yard line, and you're bringing that aspect into it. But to us, that's not an option because that's not going to give you an opportunity to make a play and possibly get a possession to win the game.
Is it incredibly penal to have first and goal at the 10 after a kickoff where no one touches the ball? I mean, it seems to me.
Well, but again, yeah, but that's the rule. But the other option, we're willing to take that opportunity to try and get the football by using some confusion or lack of understanding, communication, however you want to talk about it with the opposition to our advantage. Yeah, it's a big time disadvantage, but that's. If you get it, you got an opportunity. If you don't get it, you're not going to win the game either way.
Now, you said they can fair catch it, or
yeah. The ball, as long as the ball does not hit the ground, the return team has the option of being able to fair catch it. But you're trying to get, who's in the game, who's in certain spots. You're trying to get maybe a guy that shouldn't be on there to catch a high moonshot moving football. You're trying to get that guy to have to make a decision or catch the football.
The Duke Riley play, was that just a mental lapse on his part?
Well, he thought that their long snapper had touched the football. So anytime, obviously, the ball crosses the line of scrimmage, the punt team is not allowed to be the first team to touch the ball. Or it's an unpenalized play, illegal first touch, which then as a return team, you are free to do whatever you want. You're not going to lose possession of the ball. So he thought as the long snapper came down the field and elevated to try and down the football that he touched it. So he was trying to make a play to go advance it. We could be more aware in that situation. In those tight quarters, even if you get on it, you really don't have an opportunity to go anywhere. So it's the right idea. If you're in space and it's clear, go try and make a play. What we refer to it as when it's cloudy, you're really not in any type of advantage to try and advance it. The negative of that is, we get a really good play and a great effort from Calais, and people forget about the good part, and it's like, well, what about that? So, But excellent job by Calais. We just got to be more aware, and if you're not sure, get away from the ball.
But it wasn't related to him thinking that Calais touched it and then
It
that
had
he
nothing to do.
practice.
He thought that the long snapper on the punt team touched it, which made it an illegal first touch. Now it's our ball no matter what happens. Duke picks it up and runs it for 10 yards and fumbles it. It's still going to be our ball, but it'll be back at the spot where the long snapper, the illegal first touch, actually occurred. So there's no negative in trying to advance the football. We just got to be maybe a little bit more aware of the exact situation on that particular play.
How close was Calais?
Well, he got a piece of it. He got a piece of it. So, maybe a little bit more elongated instead of vertical, and now it's behind the line of scrimmage, and then you're into those scenarios. So, yeah, he got a piece of it, and, but again, that close to maybe really being a transition play.
How many times has he played in that position this season? I don't recall, but
A couple. It's one of our packages. So we've carried it over the years, and he's really done a good job in what we've asked him to do. And he's a special human being, a special football player.
Ethan Bonner got a lot of special teams reps. How did he look out there?
He did well. We talked about Ethan a couple weeks ago, and we feel good about when his opportunity comes. Just like last season when he was brought up from the practice squad and played well. So whenever he has a uniform and he's able to be out on the field, we feel good about Ethan and his contributions in the kicking game.
And Jeff Wilson, I think his special team snaps went down. I know he had some knee issues. Related or just
yes, combination of, number one, the situation of how the plan was going into the game, and then you'd couple that with the fact of as the game started, he was completely unavailable until we got the injury taken care of a little bit. So he went from a little bit of reduction in the plan to a zero plan because of what happened before the game.
How different is it to face the Patriots without Matthew Slater?
Well, I tell you what, it's been a long, long time. Different, you're still. I find myself looking for 18. What a special player, and a guy that I have the utmost respect for. But they haven't missed a beat in terms of what they're trying to do. They're featuring different players, and it's a good group. They have a outstanding punt returner. Good guys in the core game. The kick returners are guys that have, especially Gibson, with some history. So it's a good group.
How much of a disadvantage does it put you when you have to announce that you're doing an onside kick versus, I know in the past it was always a surprise.
Yeah, it depends on what you're trying to do. Obviously in the must, at around the 2:30 mark when we went with the traditional must onside kick, it puts those certain rules into effect. It's not a big deal, but it's hard because the practice, you don't have enough practice time to work everything. Now, obviously, the kickers are working their kicks, and we're always repping that, but you don't get enough opportunities to do a lot of those things because they come up so infrequently. And but that was, again, part of what we were trying to use with, now you're backed up from the 20, which changes landmarks. You're putting a different specialist in there, so we're trying to create some unknown to make a play. But the fact that you have to do it is, it's hard.
Hi, Wes.
Hey.
I know you haven't seen practice yet today, but just from observing Odell the last few weeks with what he could do on PUP, does he look like a guy who can help you in an NFL game on Sunday? And how badly do you need the skill set he brings as a third receiver?
Yeah, no, absolutely. He's Odell's looked great. Just in some of the routes on air and different things like that. He looks like the Odell that we've seen. So, very excited to get him out there, get him moving around, getting him in chemistry with all the guys in the room and with the quarterbacks and just continue to work the process and really just see how he looks out there in practice. But all indications look like he's looking really good.
What would you explain? How would you explain the number 3 wide receiver spot? No one's really stepped up and grabbed it yet.
Yeah, obviously, we have a lot of receivers and we've had a lot of injuries too, and everything else. But when you can add a player of Odell's caliber and how it can open up the offense and we'll see how that kind of pans out and kind of go through practice and kind of talk about it as a staff and figure out the best case scenario for our team.
That's a question about Tyreek. TV cameras captured him on a rant on the sideline. It looked like you were nearby and kind of disinterested. Trying to say that respectfully from a professional point of view, that you weren't like obsessed with it. Do you guys worry about Tyreek and his frustration? And does anybody ever talk to him about, we're trying to get you the ball or anything like that?
I think it's an emotional game, and I think there's emotional players. I mean, I don't know if you've seen it, but Tom Brady used to have outbursts like that, all the time, and trying to, lead the team and put us in a positive direction or whatever it is. So, if I look disinterested, it's more the fact of, letting players be players and letting leaders be leaders, and it's their team, not ours, and what needs to be done and what needs to be said, needs to be done and said, and letting those guys lead from that angle and letting them let the game come to them, and our job is through the week to prepare them the best we can, and then on Sundays is their day and what they need to do to go out there and execute and do what they do.
Disinterested.
No.
Poor choice of words on my part. I mean,
No,
you were
you're-
professional. You weren't obsessed.
You're not gonna bother me. It's all good.
Tom never had an outburst like that toward you, did he?
No, come on now. No, that's part of the game, and emotions run high and the adrenaline gets going, and really if you're not having that and it's more of a somber type deal, that's worse than having somebody trying to get the team going and trying to motivate and playing with the right type of intent. I've seen so many great players. That's just the way they are, and so I've yet to see a great player who just hangs their head and whatever. Like, they want to get it right and they want to go out there and execute and be successful and help the team win. So I never see that as a bad thing. And so, I almost encourage it at times, to be honest with you.
What's the best way for an established receiver to help a newcomer quarterback?
Yeah, I think just continue to do their job. I think some of the things that can happen is guys will start to press or try to make a play or want to do something different than what we've kind of talked about as far as the scheme and everything like that, and it's totally understandable. And I think the main thing is just staying to the process and knowing the assignment, the technique. Don't need to change anything. Don't need to do anything. Just going out and doing our jobs to the best of our ability, and when our time comes, taking advantage of those opportunities.
And Tyreek haven't had the production that they've had in the past this year. Yeah, we saw the drop with Jalen, but beyond that, are you pleased with? Are they getting open? The ball's just not coming their way. Are they doing the things that they've done in years past?
Yeah, no, I mean, shoot, I mean they've been practicing their tail off. I think after a few years of being here in this offense and stuff, people are going to play you kind of different, and we're seeing a lot of two shell, a lot of double teams, and we're trying to find ways to get them the ball, but at the same time, all of us coming together as a team, and obviously we want the ball in their hands and everything, but we have to let the game come to us, and we talk about a lot, and understanding that. We may have to do this, we may have to do that, or whatever it is, to try and soften up this defense, or make them more aggressive, so we can take our shots down the field with them.
What's been your message to Tyreek and Jalen as they go through this rough patch?
And just continue to work, continue the process. I think one of the main things I learned, especially in my time in New England, is when things get hard or things get tough, like, it's just time to get back to work and understand on the practice field, us as a team getting better collectively, and that's all you can really do when things are kind of hitting a dry spell like this, and you know, showing your teammates how you're going to work, how you're going to go about your business, and doing that out on the practice field. And then, you know, from there, you just kind of lay it all out there on the line on Sunday.
There were a few weeks where you didn't have Malik Washington. What have you seen from him from a developmental standpoint?
No, Malik's been great. I mean, he's a pro's pro as a rookie, so very pleased with him and you know the progress that he's made, especially early on, and very coachable kid, very smart kid, knows all the positions, doesn't get rattled, very calm demeanor, and you know, doing a great job for us. So very excited about him and his development.
We've talked to you since the roster. I'm sorry, Kirk. I don't think we've talked to you since the roster cut down. A popular player with the fan base is Ezukama. What has happened with him with regard to why it hasn't put it all together? Obviously, you've kept him around, and why Eskridge played ahead of him last week as an elevation.
Yeah. No, he's been doing a great job. You know, continue to just work. I think at the end of the day, you know, he's a guy that, you know, you don't want to give up on. You know, with that talent and what he can do with the ball in his hands and everything else. You know, and he's continued to work and continue to develop his game and everything else. And I think the main reason for D is just the fact that we needed the backup X, and he was you know, backing up Z, and so you know, just as far as that goes, and D's done a great job as well. So come in and it's learned the offense pretty quickly, and you know, still a lot of things to work through, but doing a heck of a job for us.
You guys try to find ways to get the ball to Tyreek and Jalen. Has Tua been a help? Can he be a help, or is it better for him to just sit back and let Snoopy snoop?
Oh, no, he's been a big help. Big help with the receivers as well. You know, really being involved, and you know, that's the type of leader he is, type of guy he is, and trying to help the offense any way he can. You know, since he can't be out there right now, and so he's finding alternatives to be a leader on this team, and doing a great job.
Wes, this is the first time we're speaking to you since Jimmy, the Hall of Fame announced a list of nominees for the class for next year. So I wanted to get your thoughts on how you view your Hall candidacy. And first of all, congratulations on that.
Oh, thank you very much. No, it's obviously an honor and everything like that. There's tons of great players out there, but you know, I was blessed with a great career, and you know, if it happened, that'd be awesome. You know, but I also know there's so many great players out there that have done an incredible job and are probably more deserving than I am. So,
Ryan, as his position coach, how disappointing was it to see Jay Allen like this?
Yeah, it's certainly not fun. You feel for him, and everything he's been through. You know, the great thing about Jalen is his mindset and the way he approaches things and the way he reflects. So I think he's in a great headspace, and you know, he'll talk to you guys about where he is and what he's got to do. But obviously, anytime someone goes down, it's you know, it's the hard part about this league, but it is a part of this league. And you know, you feel for them, but also you encourage them to work their tail off to get back.
Is Mo Camara the next guy? I mean, not to start, but to be elevated to play a more improved role, I should say.
Yeah, it's going to be a collective effort, you know, and Mo is certainly part of that group and everyone in the room, and we'll see how this week goes and how this weekend goes, and you know, what we need from everyone. But then the key is we need everyone to step up. So everyone in that room, it's going to take a collective effort to replace J. Phil, and they know that they're hungry, they're chopping at the bit, and you know, today we put pads on, we go out there and practice, and we'll see where it goes.
How would you assess Chop in terms of setting the edge?
Yeah, I think he improves every day, and he improves every game, and that's part of it with every young player is they're still developing as we enter the season. And so the more reps he gets, the better he's going to be, and obviously roles have been accelerated with the loss of Jalen, but I have no problem with him going out there on first and second down and doing what he's got to do in the run game.
What have you seen from Quentin Bell that you've liked?
Yeah, really the same stuff that we saw in training camp that got him to this point. He's just his leadership, his effort, his communication skills, the way he plays. He's a physical player, and I think overall he's a team guy. So the things that got him here are the things why he's still here.
What does Ogba do that some of the younger guys might be well served emulating?
Yeah, I would say his approach is probably Og is a big dude. When you look at him, he's a towering guy. So some of our younger players are a little bit different in size and stature, So the game and the way it's played between them, very similar. Like we got to accomplish the same thing, whether you're 6'6" or you're 6'2", But I would say that the way that Og has taken all those guys under their wing, and that's really everyone in the room, Jalen, Bradley, Cam Good, like all the vets that have done that, just helping them to understand what they got to do and how to do it with their gifts and their skill set.
Bradley and Cam could have come off the injured list this week. Obviously, the window's not open for them yet. The right word is not hang on until they get back, but it's the sense, hey, help is on the way with these guys.
Yeah, I would say the Bradley and Cam, the way that they attack their rehab and their training is it's incredible. Like they work their tails off, and it's a process, and it still is a process. And just because we lost a player and it's sad to see him go down, we're not going to rush that process or do anything different from what they've been doing and what we seem fit, and the training staff and the head coach and the GM seem fit for them to come back. So when they're ready to come back and they hit the field, we'll be happy to have them. But until then, we're going to let them continue to do what they do to get back.
Ryan, a question about how your guys have played against the run. I guess you could look at the run defense as you've allowed 100 yards every game. That's not good enough. But also, it's kind of been one big run quite a bit. How have your guys done against the run, all things considered?
Yeah, always things to improve. And like I said, I think game by game, we've taken strides. And you're right, it's stop a run, stop a run, stop a run, and then the one that squeaks out, and then now you're talking 100-yard games. And so we're focusing on everything that we can do, from setting the edge to getting off blocks to getting in on tackles. That's the thing that we have to focus on in our room, and we make a big point of it. And like I said, I think week by week we continue to see improvement, and now I want us to see us start dominating it.
With Chop, although he hasn't had that first sack, are you seeing enough in terms of winning pass rushes, et cetera?
Yeah, given the opportunities, when Jalen was healthy, him and Ogba got a lot of third down reps, and then when we rotate Chop in there, and I thought early in the season, like he let it loose, and he's starting to find his rhythm, I think, a little bit, against some of these bigger tackles and the way they set and just understanding the game. But I certainly do think some pressures are there, and look, we're counting on him. If there's a one-on-one, it doesn't matter if it's Chop, it doesn't matter anyone else in the room. If we get a one-on-one opportunity, we're expecting those guys to win and get home. So hope to continue to see that improve, and like I said, we're counting on those guys. So we got to get it done.
Ryan, a lot of fumbles between Jacoby Brissett and Ramondre Stevenson. Do you make your team aware of that? Do you emphasize it? Do you prioritize it? But how do you deal with that in that regard?
Yeah, no, it's noted. It's noted, and I would say that Coach Mike does a great job of just stressing how important takeaways are for a defense and for a team. And so when we go out there and we know our opponent and we know what they've done in the past, but also there's an action that needs to take part. So we're all up. The ball is live. We got to get it. But, yes, we are firmly aware of how many guys have put balls on the ground, when and where, and how to get them.
Anything else?
Is there any extra cross-training of play? Now, when you have Jalen Phillips go down, you still don't have Bradley Chubb, maybe looking into players at other positions that you might be taking on a little bit more of a greater role with to see if they could help out at the position?
Yeah, I think that's, you guys have seen it for the past 4 weeks now. That's one of the cool things about this defense that we brought is there's a lot of different looks and a lot of different things that we ask players to do. And so you might not have to change a guy's title, for example, to make him put him on the edge, right? So I think there's different ways of doing that. But I will say this, I am firmly comfortable, and we are firmly comfortable with the guys in the room of getting the job done. And they work their tail off and, throw a guy out there. Doesn't matter who it is. We expect them to set the edge and rush the passer, period.
Ryan, a quick question about pass coverage. Aside from sacks, pass defense, Ogba gets the interception. We saw Jalen Phillips with the pass breakup. I think I've seen him back in coverage, maybe even a PBU. how have your guys done against the pass aside from sacks?
Yeah. Look, here's what I tell them. I said, when we ask you to drop, let's be as efficient as we can be. And they've taken that to heart, and they love it. And when you do it right, it's when you drop guys from the line of scrimmage and you do it correctly, it can really mess up a quarterback's read. And you saw that last week. So interceptions get them excited because they can see what the possibility is, right, and how they can change the game and they can become part of the game. So it's really just understanding what they're to do, get the job done, and hopefully you're in a position where you can make a play on the ball and the next snap, line up, listen for the call, and execute it again.
Do edge guys generally enjoy that? You mentioned excitement over getting an interception because it's something different, or do they like to just, hey, I'm here to rush the passer, let me rush the passer?
Yeah, I think there's a fine line. Like, they understand usually when we're dropping, that means someone else is coming. And so usually when that happens, that sets up the rush for later, right? Because if you just rush four, and there's teams out there that do, but if you just rush four, it's easy for an offense to scheme you, to game plan you, to take away players. When you start spinning the dial and you bring this guy, that guy, and that requires us to drop a little bit, but that's going to also allow us to tee off when it's time to rush. So it helps both ways, and ultimately it helps the defense and it helps the team. And then like you saw Agba, right spot, right time, great hands or great thighs, whatever it is, and then good things happen. So